pause that. Alright, boom. Hit the like button. Let me see. Where's the team? Where's the team? I can't even see the channel when I got that shit like that. That's better. That's better. Oh yeah, let's see. I've been saying I gotta watch some Sly Green documentary. I told him on the trap. My pops did 18 years in the feds. He was locked up with him. He was talking. He was talking about him, and then I was like, let me see if he got a doc. Pulled him up, not typed his name in, and here we are. Here we are. Let's see what's going on. Hit the like button.
Buffalo's east side had been a war zone for so long, the pavement practically remembered everybody that hit it. Middle of the day, sun out, kids outside, buses rolling, and still somebody got dropped right there on the concrete like it was nothing. Broad daylight murder. No mask, no warning, just boom. Another man laid out while the whole block pretended they didn't see a thing. Cops slid through late, stepping around shell casings like it was routine. Scene was empty. No phones out, no neighbors talking, no footprints worth reading. Just another chalk outline in a neighborhood drowning in them. East side had been bleeding for years. Crews fighting over corners like little wars. Gun smoke floating through back streets, people ducking behind doors hoping they don't end up collateral damage. Everybody knew who ran the violence. A ruthless shot caller and the wolves that moved with him. But knowing and proving aren't the same thing. Detectives couldn't get traction on nothing. Every time they tried to pin bodies on him, the hood went silent. Witnesses vanished, stories changed, memories got blurry real fast. Fear had the streets on lockdown more than the cops ever did, but even in a place where snitching was a death wish, the system needed somebody to step up. One voice brave enough, or fed up enough, to break the cycle. Prosecutor Frank Clark said it straight. They needed a miracle, and somehow they got one.
It's always snitches around. You ain't gotta worry about that. They're gonna find one. Somebody gonna tell.
One man stepped forward, saw everything, knew every face, every shot fired, every move made. And he wasn't mumbling or half-stepping. He was sharp, solid, and ready to play his role in open court. But the second he agreed to talk, the whole city knew the price on his head went up. They had to wrap him in protection like he was gold, keep him hidden, keep him alive. Because this wasn't just another witness. This was the first crack in the armor. First time in years, the law had a real shot at dragging a feared gang boss out the shadows and into a courtroom. Frank Clark said it with the weight of the whole East Side behind him. They finally had someone who saw it all, someone believable, someone willing to testify. And for the first time in a long time, Buffalo had a chance to break the cycle of blood soaking its streets. By fall 1988, Buffalo's East Side was slipping into straight chaos. Whole blocks getting swallowed up by young wolves pushing crack like it was the new gold rush. Crews weren't just hustling, they wanted full control, even over the old head numbers joints that'd been feeding families for decades. When the new Jack goons tried muscling into that world, everything exploded. Corners turned into battlefields, nights turned into shootouts. The whole East Side felt the tension tightening like a fist around its throat. Then came October 25th, a cold afternoon on Kretner Street where quiet never lasted long. A neighborhood kid, just a good dude helping an older lady with her grocery bags, became the center of the storm. Two young hitters slid around the corner, moving fast, moving focused, the kind of walk that told you something foul was seconds away. No talking, no warning. One of them raised the burner. 3 shots cracked through the block like fireworks.
One of them raised the burner. I like this guy, I like him. I like this guy, I like this narrator.
No warning. One of them raised the burner. 3 shots cracked through the block like fireworks in a tunnel. Then they vanished, melting into side streets before anyone could blink. The echo crawled through every open window. People ducked behind doors. Moms grabbed their kids. That older woman he'd been helping dropped the groceries and ran into her house to snatch the phone, panic shaking her voice as she dialed 911. Wasn't even the only call. The switchboard lit up with neighbors whispering the same terrifying words. Somebody's been shot. Somebody's dying. Cops rolled up fast, found the kid laid out on the concrete, chest and stomach leaking, fighting for every breath like it owed him something. He was alive, but barely.
Nigga said fighting for his breath like it owed him something. I ain't gonna lie. Wicked Streets. Hold on. I gotta tap in. I like his narrating skills. He going crazy. He going crazy. So, okay. Yeah, I gotta tap in with him. Wicked Streets TV. Yeah, I gotta fuck with Wicked. Wicked funny.
Ran into her house to snatch the phone, panic shaking her voice as she dialed 911. Wasn't even the only call. The switchboard lit up with neighbors whispering the same terrifying words. Somebody's been shot. Somebody's dying. Cops rolled up fast, found the kid laid out on the concrete, chest and stomach leaking, fighting for every breath like it owed him something. He was alive, but barely hanging on. Seconds felt like hours until the fire rescue crew pulled up and the paramedics dove in, trying to snatch him back from the edge. Detectives hit the scene soon after. Uniforms briefed them while they started locking the block down, yellow tape stretching from pole to pole. Nobody wanted to talk. Nobody wanted to be seen talking. Typical street silence when bullets been flying. But they tried anyway, moving from face to face. One woman, Martha West, had been standing right next to the kid when the shots tore the air apart. But fear had her tongue tied. She claimed she was digging in her trunk when the body dropped. Said she ain't seen.
Yeah, man. Why I gotta be that? Why can't it be? Yeah, she probably really didn't see the shit. Yeah, but the best thing to do, man, is keep your fucking mouth shut, man. Yeah, that's the best thing to do, especially when you're in them type of areas. When you know if it's a decent area, it's different. But when you in the trenches and niggas is dropping and bodies is dropping, it's best just to mind your fucking business, man. Yeah. Don't try to be that good civilian. Yeah, I'm sell what I see. You're gonna get diluted. Nigga might dilute your shit, nigga. So, listen, mind your fucking business. For real.
See nothing. Maybe she didn't. Or maybe she didn't want to die for what she knew.
Right.
Either way, she gave them nothing.
Right.
Then detectives found someone else. James Wright. 41, quiet, working man, married with 2 young sons, just trying to make it through life without trouble. A custodian at the church nearby, the kind of dude the whole block knew as safe. He told them he'd been in the church van, dropping groceries to the elderly, doing God's work when he heard a scream slice through the air. Instinct made him look. He spotted 2 men tearing down the street like they'd just done dirt. He figured it was a purse snatching, nothing new in a neighborhood drowning in struggle. So he followed them, trying to make sense of what he saw. But when he made that last turn, 2 blocks deep, the world froze. One of those men stopped running, turned, raised the gun, and James Wright found himself staring straight down the barrel, realizing too late this wasn't no petty robbery. It was something way deadlier, and he just walked into the lion's mouth. Wright spoke briefly with the detectives and laid out what he saw. 2 young wolves peeling off from the block after the shot.
Look, niggas, see them niggas upped it on him. Niggas seen it, upped it on him. Mind your business. Fuck is you looking? Niggas is shooting, get low. Get the fuck out of there. I'm telling you, nigga need to mind their business. Let's see what happened to this nigga. Cause look, he's snitching. Let's see what happened.
Shots rang out. He gave them everything he could remember, down to how they moved, how they looked, the energy they had when they...
That nigga gave them niggas how they was running. Yeah, they was running like this. He told them
tore
everything.
Around that corner. It wasn't much, but on a street where the concrete doesn't talk, it was more than anybody else was willing to give. Detectives soon learned the victim wasn't some random face. It was 25-year-old Larnell Cottrell, a kid from the neighborhood whose life got snatched in broad daylight. Under a parked car, they found a spent shell hiding in the shadows. Another slug turned up, stuck to the stretcher when paramedics lifted Larnell's body. Same copper-jacketed rounds, same caliber, same cold message. Whoever did this came to finish a job. Back at the first precinct, the squad huddled up, tension thick, voices low.
Nah, I don't do reactions on here. Follow the kick. Follow the kick. I'm going live on kick after this.
Anybody talk to the mailman yet? Anyone else been outside? This was daytime, right? Daytime, right in the open. Still nobody saw nothing, or at least nobody was trying to say it. Word dropped that Larnell didn't make it, died before the doctors could do anything. Now the shooters weren't just 2 punks on the run. They were murder suspects. And every hour they were loose was another hour the street stayed hot. Detectives combed through the scene evidence again, hoping something would crack open, but it kept coming back to the same truth. All they had was one man, one witness, James Wright. And he was sitting out there with a target on his back. For his own protection, they brought Wright into the station. He didn't fight it, just walked in humble, still shaking from what he'd survived. He ran the detectives through the whole timeline. The scream, the chase, the turn, the gun in his face. Then he dropped something they didn't expect. This man, this quiet custodian, had memorized the license plate of the car the shooters dipped into. Cops ran the numbers, and everything changed. The whip was registered to a woman tied to one of East Buffalo's most feared names, Donald Sly Green. A dude whose rep alone made grown men swallow their words. The kind of street boss whose shadow stretched across blocks like a storm cloud. Right then, the detectives knew what lane this murder came out of. Gang business, retaliation, territory, something ugly and calculated. They slid a photo lineup in front of Wright, not expecting much. Most people freeze up when those faces hit the table. Most people start thinking about funerals, but not Wright. According to Detective DePiro, the man didn't even blink,
But not Wright. Rat ass nigga. Nigga said, but not Wright. He ain't freeze.
Flinch. He just stared at the stack, moved one picture aside, then tapped one photo like he'd been waiting to do it. That's him, Sly Green. The room went dead still. DePiro and his partner looked at each other like they'd seen a ghost speak. People don't point out a monster like that. Not that fast, not that confidently. But James Wright did, and right then, the whole case flipped, because now the streets had a name, and that name was Murder Walking. On the very next morning, while the block was still buzzing from the broad daylight body drop, detectives caught a wild break. One of those only-in-the-hood twists that hits the precinct like gossip with teeth. A janitor working upstairs near the holding pen started yapping about some dude in a cell bragging he saw the whole hit. Turns out the man talking was Stephen Brown, a jail-worn fiend who'd been scooped for boosting nonsense out of a corner store hours earlier. Detectives DePiro and Grabowski slid up to Brown, pressed him for the play-by-play. Brown swore on everything he was right there when the shot went off, said he watched the trigger man let it ring, and the name he dropped was heavy. He pointed straight at Sly Green. But Brown wasn't exactly the type you build a murder case on. Dude had a rap sheet longer than a bus route, twitchy, unreliable, and liable to say anything to get a sandwich or shave time off a petty charge. Detectives knew he was a bonus footnote at best. The case was going to live or die off James Wright, the only civilian with clean eyes on the scene. Wright's ID changed everything. Soon as he pointed at that photo, the warrant printed itself. They were officially hunting Sly Green. And Sly was...
As soon as he pointed at the picture, the warrant printed itself. Yo, nah, this nigga's funny.
Wasn't some small-time stick-up kid. Cops in Buffalo knew his name like a bad habit. He was the face of the LA Boys, a crew that turned East Buffalo blocks into their own open-air enterprise. At 29, Green had already stacked more bodies and war stories than men twice his age. His rep went back decades, so when detectives said Sly Green's name out loud, they knew the storm they were calling in. And now, with Wright standing tall and pointing directly at him, the hunt for one of Buffalo's most dangerous men had officially begun. By the time summer heat hit the east side, the whole neighborhood felt like it was breathing gunpowder. Violence wasn't creeping in no more. It was stomping through the blocks like it owned them. Cats were getting lit up in broad daylight and nobody was talking. Street rules were louder than sirens and detectives kept pulling up to scenes with nothing but empty shells and scared faces. When Larnell Cottrell dropped, all they had were 3 lonely pieces of metal. 2 shells on the pavement and 1 slug the coroner dug out his body. 3 shots, just like the whispers said. Forensic heads put the rounds under their microscopes, twisted the knobs, ran the tests, came back saying all 3 were .41 caliber, most likely from a Smith & Wesson wheel gun. That was solid science, but it didn't matter much. The burner vanished like smoke. Whoever did it knew the block, knew the alleys, and knew how to clean their tracks real quiet. Detective Sergeant Daniel Rich and the evidence team combed everything east to west. They hit backyards, basements, boarded up porches, nothing. The witness said the shooter broke down the block, so cops chased that trail too. Still no iron, no luck, no nothing. But the getaway whip that they did find, dumped a few blocks out, tucked slick like the driver, vanished into thin air. Forensic squads tore through it with gloves, tweezers, the whole crime lab orchestra. And what did they get? 0. Clean as a showroom model. Not a fingerprint, not a spit.
0. Clean as a showroom model. Yo, nah, this nigga is funny as shit.
Fleck, not a hair. Somebody wiped it down until it gleamed like it never carried killers. And that's when everybody realized it. James Wright wasn't just helpful. He was the whole damn case. Assistant DA Joseph Marozak knew it too. Right. Without prints, without a gun, without a trail, all they had was Wright's eyes and his memory. And Wright was sharp, dead serious. He had pointed straight at Donald Sly Green, one of the heaviest names sliding around East Buffalo. Green wasn't just slinging poison, he had his hands in everything ugly. Street whispers tied him to dope, gambling, snatched girls, even kidnappings. But he always slipped away, always one step ahead. Dude felt untouchable. Deputy DA Frank Clark was tired of that storyline. With Wright willing to stand tall, he thought maybe, just maybe, this could be the crack in Sly's armor. They had a body in the morgue, a witness who wasn't scared, and a neighborhood praying somebody would finally take the wheel back from the chaos. So they unleashed the hunt. Buffalo PD flooded the east side like a storm, kicked doors, ran tips, sat on blocks until the streetlights buzzed themselves to sleep. Every night another anonymous call came in. Sly's over here. Sly just left. Sly in the back somewhere. But every time they pulled up, he was already ghost, always slipping out the back, always ducking through alleys, always vanishing like he knew their moves before they made them. Later, detectives would learn they were close, so close they could have heard his shoes on concrete, but close doesn't count in the streets. And Sly Green stayed a shadow while the city held its breath. A couple weeks after Cottrell hit the pavement, the city was still buzzing with fear, and the cops were damn near running on fumes. Then one night, luck finally blinked. A patrol spotted Sly Green's shiny Mercedes sitting outside the crib of one of his known right-hands, a spot everybody on the east side knew wasn't nothing but a satellite for the LA boys' dirt. Detectives slid in quiet, parked up, and staked the joint out like wolves waiting on a door to crack. Hours passed, no movement, just streetlights humming, shadows shifting, and detectives praying tonight was the night the ghost slipped. But right when the block felt like it was tightening around something real, a news van came rolling up, cameras out, antennas waving, scanning police radios like they were part of the squad. Whole op blown. Cops had no choice. They rushed the house immediately, hoping to catch Sly mid-breath. Empty. If Sly had been in that crib, he'd already evaporated into the night. Again. Frustration was turning into a sickness. The longer Sly stayed loose, the colder the case would get. And prosecutors knew what that meant. More bodies, more fear, more families stuck lighting candles on curbs. East Buffalo was overrun with turf crews, gamblers, number runners, and dope boys trying to snatch each other's corners. Larnell Cottrell was just the latest caught in the spin cycle. They didn't have the gun. They didn't have prints. But they had one man willing to stand up, James Wright, the church custodian who saw more than God probably intended. Wright pointed straight at Sly in the photo lineup the same day the shots rang out. No stutter, no doubt. That was the moment the city finally had something solid. But months later, Sly was still a ghost walking. The first precinct kept running daily briefings, stacking folders on folders, building a map of every alley Sly might slide through. They pulled info from old robberies, gambling busts, dope cases, kidnappings, anything with the LA boys' fingerprints on it. Meanwhile, detectives were back out on the pavement talking to informants, leaning on snitches who owed favors. One of them finally gave up a sliver. He didn't know where Sly was. Nobody did. The man hadn't been seen in weeks, but he did know why Cottrell dropped. Said it was payback, straight street justice. Cottrell had ties to a numbers racket, and this was just the newest entry in a long list of bodies connected to that underground money pipeline. The trail went back to '86 when a young dude named Devotee Pompey got lit up in an east side alley. Cops suspected Samuel Green, Sly's little brother, was the trigger man. Word was Pompey stole 20 bands from the wrong people, and the bosses brought Samuel in to clean it up. Cops arrested Sam. He got arraigned, then bailed out. And a few days later, he turned up slumped behind his steering wheel, head hit clean. Street whispers said Sam got greedy, told the same bosses that unless they broke him off something extra, he'd start talking to the law. That threat signed his death certificate. The numbers world eats its own. And Cottrell's murder? Just another chapter in a cycle Buffalo couldn't break. Meanwhile, Sly Green stayed missing, floating somewhere between rumor and shadow while the whole city waited for the next shoe to drop. The deeper the detectives dug, the uglier the picture got. Those two early bodies, Devotee Pompey and Samuel Green, weren't just random street hits. They were the opening shots of a cold-blooded war between the old guard numbers racket and the new wolves on the block, Sly Green's LA boys. For 2 straight years, the East Side felt like a battlefield nobody ever officially declared. 8 bodies, maybe more, dropped with no witnesses, no justice, no answers, just chalk outlines that got washed off the concrete by the next day's rain. And now everybody knew the latest soul fed into that war machine was Larnell Cottrell, another dude tied into that underground money river, and the name echoing through every hallway in the precinct as the prime shooter, Sly Green. Detectives heard enough whispers to piece together a motive. Payback, straight revenge. Folks said Sly had been talking grim for a while, saying he was going to get his lick back, settle old scores, make sure nobody forgot who really ran East Buffalo. So when Cottrell fell, the streets knew it wasn't random. It was a message. But knowing why a man died and catching the man who pulled the trigger are 2 entirely different things. Sly was still out there ducking the law like he had the city mapped in his bloodstream. Months passed, tips came in, most of them garbage. Then one anonymous call finally hit different. Sly wasn't in Buffalo at all. He dipped way down south, Atlanta. Buffalo authorities linked with the feds, pulling in the FBI to help crack the case. Assistant DA Joe Marusa wasn't letting this one slip. Too many bodies, too much fear, too many years of Sly slipping through hands like smoke. Then word came back, they had him. Agents spotted Sly strolling out of a fast food joint like he didn't have half a city hunting him. In February 1989, 4 months after Cottrell's murder, FBI agents ran down on him on a busy Atlanta street. No shootout, no dramatic chase, just quick cuffs on cold wrists. Finally, the ghost had weight again. B.S. Lee Green, the shot caller of the L.A. Boys, was dragged back to Buffalo to face murder and weapons charges. No bail, no daylight, just a concrete box and the long shadow of a courtroom. And the DA's golden ticket, James Wright, a regular church janitor, family man, clean record, a dude whose whole life looked like the opposite of everything Sly represented. Prosecutors loved him, said he was the kind of witness juries trusted on sight. No dirt, no angle, just a man who saw what he saw and never blinked. They planned to put him front and center, let the jury soak in his...
Just a man who saw what he saw and never blinked. It's crazy.
...sincerity. Make them believe in him the same way the detectives did. Because in a case built on shadows, fear, and bodies with no justice, James Wright was the only thing that felt undeniably real. In the months creeping up on the trial, the DA's office stayed tense. They'd seen this movie before. Good witnesses get nervous, disappear, switch their story, or back out entirely once the streets start whispering their name. And without James Wright, the whole case against Sly Green wasn't just shaky. It was dead before it ever hit a courtroom. Then, late August 1989, 6 months after Sly got snatched in Atlanta, Wright walks into the DA's office with a face that said everything before he even opened his mouth. The man looked like he'd been living with a shadow pressed against his spine. And when he finally spoke, it hit the room like a gunshot. Wright told them the LA boys had clocked him. Not just suspected, knew. And the threats weren't rumors or street chatter. They were up close, personal, and relentless. A gang member named Garland Kaiser, one of Sly's solid soldiers, had been leaning on him for months, hard. Turns out some sloppy paperwork in the system gave the wolves exactly what they needed. Back then, you could walk into the precinct, drop a quarter, and walk out with a crime report. One of Sly's people did just that, and there it was in black and white. James Wright, witness. From that moment on, Wright wasn't just a custodian who saw too much. He was a target. He kept quiet for months, too scared to run to the cops, terrified that talking out loud would make his family the next headline. But now, he laid it all out. Piece by piece, like he'd been holding his breath the whole summer. It started in June, late night, quiet block, kids asleep, when Kaiser knocked on his door. Not yelling, not wild, calm, dead calm. Told Wright he knew the janitor was planning to testify. Told him if he didn't switch up, his family wouldn't live to see the trial date. Then he walked off like it was a normal neighborhood chat. A few nights later, Wright woke up to a flash outside. His car lit up in flames, firebombed, a warning, the kind you can smell for days. Then came the Molotov through the window of his son's room. It didn't explode, but the message was louder than any boom. Next came the gunshots, clean holes punched into his bedroom wall and through a closet door. One round missed his boy's head by inches. By July, they weren't hiding anymore. Kaiser rolled up to Wright outside the church like it was his block, flanked by 2 other men. They pressed him about the shooting, tried to corner his story, and Wright, terrified, exhausted, stretched thin, told them what they wanted to hear. He couldn't ID Sly Green. Before they walked off, Kaiser slapped a $100 bill into his hand. Wright didn't even want it, but Kaiser made it clear. Taking the money meant safety. Refusing meant funerals. Weeks went by. No knocks, no bombs, no bullets. Almost felt like a ceasefire. Then August 28th hit. Wright was driving his wife to work when a car rolled up beside them and sprayed the passenger side with shots. Glass shattered, slicing Wright across the face. His wife somehow walked away untouched. That was it. The line was crossed. The fear was done. He went straight to the authorities. Because the LA boys weren't trying to scare him anymore, they were trying to erase him. The man wasn't just shook, he was tight. Yeah.
Damn, they stupid though. They stupid. They did all of that. Mazel Tov, do all that dumb shit. They did all that dumb shit when y'all could have just killed them from the first place. Instead of trying to do, like, why y'all going over there, slap him 100, leave him alone for a while, and come shoot his car? Like, what you think he gonna do now? What the fuck they thought was about to happen?
He felt that chill on his spine, no fronting, anybody would. But underneath all that fear was pure fire. He couldn't believe these dudes had the audacity to flip his whole world upside down like that. Every hour felt like somebody was playing roulette with his life, and he blamed everybody in arm's reach. Cops, detectives, the whole system. In his mind, they all dropped the ball. If they had handled business early, he kept thinking, he wouldn't be living minute to minute like a man already halfway in the grave. And the wild part, even the detectives didn't know how to save him. They were scrambling in the dark, trying to figure out their next move like they were rookies caught out of position. Nobody had answers. Nobody felt safe. So the DA's office made the only play they had, get the Wright family out of Buffalo before the streets swallowed them whole. No farewell, no warning, no chance to grab anything but fear and a change of clothes. They tucked the family away at a relative spot somewhere off the grid, hoping the silence would hold long enough to get them to trial alive. But Buffalo gossip moves faster than sirens. Before long, the whispers leaked back. Somebody had snitched out the hideout. Word on the pavement was that the LA boys weren't playing small. They wanted Wright gone before he even thought about sitting on a witness stand. Detectives started hearing the same nightmare from different mouths. Hitters were already lining up. One crew from Los Angeles, real Crip heavy, supposedly rolling in to finish the job. Another squad from Buffalo ready to cash out on a contract. Wright wasn't hiding from shadows anymore. He was hiding from actual death squads. The cops had no choice. Before the hit squads got anywhere near the front door, they yanked the family out and stashed them in some nameless hotel, the kind of place where nobody asks questions because they don't want the answers. That was enough for the prosecutors to run straight to the judge. They begged for the earliest trial date possible, laying out the danger like evidence on a table, the moves, the threats, the hit teams, all of it. The judge didn't blink. Boom. Early trial date granted. Defense tried to get cute, pushing to silence the one man who could bury their boss. They wanted Wright's testimony thrown out completely, but the judge wasn't having it. Another win for the prosecution, another loss for the streets trying to keep Wright quiet. And Assistant DA Joseph Marozak knew exactly what it meant. This whole case was balancing on one man's shoulders. No Wright, no charges, no Wright, no trial.
Right.
Sly Green walks back into East Buffalo with a grin and a revenge list. Everything, justice, the streets, the future, all of it came down to keeping one furious, frightened man alive long enough to speak his truth in open court. Sly Green didn't walk into court with no bargain bin lawyer. He had one of Buffalo's top courtroom sharks on his side. Paul Cambria, the type of attorney who could make a murder charge look like a parking ticket if you gave him enough time and daylight. Before trial even kicked off, Cambria was already talking slick to the cameras, swearing up and down that his client wasn't the trigger man. Somebody got dropped, sure. And yeah, that hit smelled like street business from the jump. But Cambria insisted Sly wasn't the one who pulled the strings. But talk is talk. If he wanted Sly to walk out those doors a free man, he had one mission: tear James Wright apart on that stand. Make the jury forget his face, his words, everything. October 31st, 1989, a full year after Larnell Cottrell got laid out in the street, the whole city held its breath as the trial opened. The Erie County Courthouse didn't just turn up security, they turned it into a fortress. Everybody felt the tension. Snipers on the roof with long guns trained on every angle, metal detectors humming in the lobby like it was an airport. Sheriffs with itchy trigger fingers patting down anybody who dared walk through the door. All of it for one man, James Wright. The system knew if he didn't make it to that witness chair alive, the whole case folded like wet cardboard. Cambria looked at all that heavy police presence and called foul. To him, it was setting the stage, making his client look like the devil in human form before the first argument even hit the air. Every juror, he claimed, was walking in already thinking Sly was Buffalo's own boogeyman. When the trial finally got moving, the opening statements came quick and sharp. Prosecutors let it be known that their entire playbook revolved around one person, Wright. He was the man who pointed at Sly's face in a photo lineup the same night Cottrell hit the ground. No DNA, no fingerprints, no gun, nothing to scientifically tie Sly to the murder, just Wright's eyes, and whatever pieces of the street lined up with his story. They told the jury that the scraps of evidence matched Wright's account, the dudes he followed running from the scene, the shells matching the type of burner pointed at him, the getaway car abandoned exactly how he described it. Not a neat case, but enough for the prosecution to say it painted a picture. Then Cambria stepped up for the defense and went for the foundation. His whole attack rested on one.
Nah, yeah, the narrator trying to have jokes and shit, like, yeah, the narrator definitely type corny. He definitely corny. Like, he trying to have little slick jokes and shit, like, it's making funny.
Thing. You can't trust what somebody thinks they saw in chaos. Eyewitness, unreliable, memory, easily tricked. He laid it out for the jury like street philosophy. People swear they know a face, swear they'd bet their life on it, until the person turns around and suddenly aren't who they thought. And if you can mistake somebody you've known for years, what chance does a scared man have IDing someone in a flash with his life on the line? That was the heart of the battle. One witness standing firm, one lawyer trying to turn doubt into freedom, and a courtroom locked down like a war zone while the city waited to see which side would crack first. They brought James Wright in like he was the president or the last surviving witness to the apocalypse. 8 sheriffs deep, shotguns on their hips, automatics hanging off chest rigs, eyes scanning every shadow in that courtroom. The whole place went dead quiet when he stepped through the door. You could feel the weight in the air. For the first time since that street went hot and Larnell Cottrell hit the pavement, Wright was about to lock eyes with the man the city whispered about, Donald Sly Green. And when their gazes met, you could tell neither forgot what went down that day. Wright sat down slow, nervous but locked in, like a man who knew he had no choice but to walk straight through the fire. The prosecutor started digging in, and what came out wasn't no quick story. It was hours of him reliving the moment everything snapped. He told the jury how he was just running an errand, dropping off groceries in the neighborhood, minding his business, when a scream ripped through the block. Something in that sound made him look up. And that's when he saw 2 figures tearing down the street like they were made of smoke. Instead of peeling off, he jumped in the church van he was driving and tailed them. That old instinct to help, to see, to not let the street swallow another body without someone knowing what happened.
Oh, this stupid nigga jumped in the car and started chasing them? This nigga jumped in the car, started chasing them?
He followed them around a corner just as they were piling into a car to disappear. That's when everything slowed. One of the men doubled back. Wright froze. Suddenly, he wasn't looking at a runner. He was looking straight down the mouth of a revolver. Cold metal, cold eyes, no hesitation. The prosecutor leaned in. So when he pointed that gun at you, what did you do? Wright swallowed hard. All I could do was motion not to shoot. That's it. He stared at me. I stared at him. And he's looking at me like he's saying, don't take another step. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm never forgetting this day. The courtroom didn't move. Nobody breathed. When you say he had a gun on you, what do you mean? He had it aimed at my head, straight at me, just like this. Wright lifted his hand, mimicking the weapon, the whole room watching him. Then came the question everyone knew was coming. Do you see the person in this courtroom who pointed that gun at you? Wright didn't blink. Yes, I do. Tell us where he is. Describe something he's wearing. He's in a suit, right there, sitting next to that man up front. Can I point? Yes. Wright raised his hand, steady but tight with emotion. That's him. That's him right there. A ripple went through the room. Even the deputies shifted. And then Wright described the getaway car, that Ford Escort he saw them jumping into as they tried to ghost off the block. The same detail that started tying the whole day together, the kind of testimony that don't just fill a courtroom, it shakes one. With the whole case balanced on James Wright's word, the courtroom turned into a chessboard, and defense attorney Paul Cambria came in like he was playing for blood. His angle wasn't to call Wright a liar. Nah, that would backfire instantly. Wright was the type of dude the city had already painted as a quiet church custodian who just happened to roll up on chaos and tried to help. Cambria knew better than to swing on a witness who looked like he'd give you directions if you were lost. So his plan, strip Wright down without touching him, show the jury that good intentions don't make perfect memories, and that even honest men can be dead wrong. He leaned into the little cracks in Wright's story like a man peeling paint off a wall. 1 minute it's Wright saying the day was bone dry, sky clear, nothing falling. Then you got everybody else from that block swearing it was coming down light, that misty buffalo drizzle, the kind that sticks to your clothes and hangs in the air. Cambria let that contrast sit heavy. Then he went at Wright's description of the shooter. Wright said the guy was short. Other witnesses, tall, slim, completely different silhouette. The jury had to feel that wobble, that slight sway in Wright's certainty. And Cambria kept feeding it to them slow, like poison. But the prosecution wasn't about to let their star witness stand alone. They brought in their next card, Stephen Brown. Brown walked into that courtroom with the whole street on his back. He wasn't polished like Wright. He wasn't clean cut. He openly carried the weight of addiction, the fresh stain of a shoplifting arrest. But he had something Wright didn't. He said he actually saw the trigger get pulled. Brown told the jury he was right there on the block the day Larnell Cottrell dropped. Said he watched 2 men roll up on the victim like they had business to handle. Said one of them lifted a piece and let off multiple shots, dropping Cottrell where he stood. Brown said after the smoke cleared, he dipped to his girl spot before the cops flooded the scene. Then came the part that made the courtroom shift. Brown pointed at Sly Green as the shooter, backing Wright's identification like he'd been standing beside him the whole time. The prosecutor made sure the jury knew Brown wasn't cutting any backdoor deals, no trading truth for leniency. They laid it out clean. Brown pled guilty to the shoplifting, took his 60 days, no handshake with the DA attached. But when the defense got their turn, they tore into Brown like he was a loose thread in the whole case. Cambria didn't argue Brown was lying about being there. He just argued Brown showed up late. According to him, Brown didn't see the murder. He saw the aftermath. And everything else he claimed? Cambria said Brown pulled it straight from the evening news, then stitched himself into the story to look useful. To the defense, Brown wasn't a witness. He was a hustler, a street-smart survivor who knew how to bend a system already bent against him. A man who thought stepping into this case might buy him a little leverage somewhere down the line. 2 witnesses, 2 stories. 1 jury trying to figure out who actually saw truth and who just saw opportunity. And all of it orbiting around one name whispered through Buffalo like a curse: Sly Green. The prosecution brought in Officer Carl Thompson next, an old-school Buffalo cop who'd been around long enough to know every dealer's face, every corner, every car that didn't belong. The evidence unit couldn't pull a single fingerprint off that getaway whip, not one smudge they could pin on Sly. But Thompson stepped up and told the courtroom he'd seen Sly Green slide out that exact same car just days before the hit went down. That one statement hit like a brick. Suddenly, the ride James Wright chased wasn't just some random escort. It was a car the defendant had already been moving in. As the trial crept forward, the prosecutors could feel the room shifting. The jury wasn't just listening, they were scared. The forewoman even pulled the judge aside and confessed that some of those 12 citizens didn't feel safe breathing the same air as Sly Green. That's the kind of presence he had. Even sitting in a courtroom, chained by the system, he made strangers feel like they were one wrong look away from disappearing, but fear cuts both ways. The prosecutors prayed it wouldn't freeze the jury up when it came time to deliver a verdict. By late November 1989, the whole city felt the weight of the case closing in. Streets were buzzing, newspapers watching every twist. Inside the courthouse, everything came down to one question. Did they believe James Wright, the quiet church janitor who became the state's whole backbone? He said he saw the men running after the gunshots. He said he followed them. He said the man who turned and aimed a gun at his head was Sly Green. When closing arguments hit, the defense swung hard. They drilled in the fact that there wasn't a single piece of forensic evidence. No prints, no shell casings tied to Sly, nothing physical. They painted Wright as brave, sure, but human. Scared, shaken, pressured, and ultimately wrong. Mistaken, they repeated like it was gospel. The threats he faced were real, but the ID? They said that was the weak link. Then the prosecutor stood up and pushed everything back across the table. He reminded the jury that Wright wasn't out there alone. Stephen Brown had backed him, and the circumstantial evidence lined up tight. Wrong car, wrong street, wrong time, all pointing straight at Sly. They told the jury that Wright was the linchpin, the piece holding the puzzle together, the man whose courage got the case this far. Once the arguments died down, the jury was locked away, sequestered, ordered to decide the fate of one of Buffalo's most feared street figures. But then something happened that nobody expected. The forewoman sent a message to the judge, not to ask about evidence, not about testimony, not about procedure. She asked if the defendant could be kept out of the courtroom when the verdict was read, even behind bars, even surrounded by deputies, even under a judge's authority. Sly Green still had the room trembling. Soon as the verdict dropped, Judge Drury sat back like a man who'd already read the end of the book. He didn't raise his voice, didn't grandstand, just said the jury had seen right through Sly Green. Quiet in the courtroom, calm in the chair, but his whole aura told them everything they needed to know. The forewoman tried to get a little extra protection, clearly spooked by what she'd just helped decide, but the judge shut it down gentle-like, letting her know he understood the fear. Just couldn't bend the rules for it. It didn't even take a full workday for the jury to land on a decision. 6 hours, and it was over. They hit Sly with second-degree murder for that '88 hit on Larnell Cottrell, and the judge didn't bother soft-stepping the punishment. Max time, 25 to life. His lawyer tried to swing it back up the ladder, saying the jury got shook by the heavy security and the news circus around the case. The higher court didn't blink. Appeal denied, case closed. But inside the DA's office, they were seeing the game from a different angle. Frank Clark didn't trust the aftermath one bit. He knew families like the Wrights didn't just walk away clean after crossing someone like Sly. He went straight to the feds, pushing to get them tucked away in witness protection. At first, the DOJ brushed him off, said it was a state body, state murder, no federal hook. Then Clark put it plain. If Sly ever got hit with federal charges, Wright might have to take that stand again. Suddenly the doors opened and the whole family disappeared into that federal fog. Meanwhile, Sly touched down in state prison like it was just another office with worse lighting. Authorities thought the cuffs were on him, but Buffalo law enforcement wasn't buying the act. They called in the FBI because the word on the street was Sly hadn't stopped running a thing. He just changed the return address. Agents wired up the prison phones, sat back, and listened. And from what they heard, Sly was still the general, still calling shots, still moving weight, still lining up dirty work like he was sitting on a throne instead of a steel bunk. Cocaine, heroin, kidnappings, all orchestrated through 15-minute collect calls. Every move the LA boys made hit his desk first. Nobody breathed without a green light from Green. One case spelled it out clear. Some of his people snatched up a local shop owner. Sly got the play-by-play from inside the joint, told them what to do, when to do it, and soon as that $25K hit hands, he gave the okay to drop the man back outside. The feds had the whole movie on tape. Then things got colder. The wiretaps cracked open a whole other layer. Sly's wife wasn't just holding him down, she was helping run the empire, setting up multi-way calls, connecting him to lieutenants, keeping the wheels greased. And when it came to violence, she wasn't backing him off. She was pushing him forward, even encouraging hits on two of his own drug associates, including his own brother. To outsiders, Judy Spidell Green perfectly played the role of a woman teaching Buffalo kids about civics and history during the day. But once the sun dropped, she stepped straight into the underworld, playing a role nobody would have believed unless they saw the transcripts themselves. The whole thing showed one truth. Even locked down, Sly Green wasn't really gone. He was still out there, calling, commanding, controlling, like the streets were just an extension of his cell. By the summer of '92, the whole LA boys machine got hit like the feds were dropping a bomb from the sky. July 9th, a date Buffalo won't forget, the indictments came down heavy. 26 bodies snatched up in one sweep. Sly Green, his wife, his brothers, damn near half his bloodline, all wrapped up in a federal package stamped with drugs, racketeering, and gang terror. It wasn't no small play either. 73 counts backed by mountains of receipts, 900 FBI tapes, 6,000 pages of cold federal paper, the kind of weight that don't just scare a crew, it cracks whole dynasties. And that's exactly what happened. The Green family's empire started collapsing like old brick. Cats who used to swear they'd die for Sly were suddenly lining up to flip. Cousins, homies, longtime soldiers, all taking deals, all pointing fingers at the top man they once treated like a street king. Out in the cut under witness protection, miles from the blocks that raised him, James Wright came back to drag the truth out again. He'd already helped bury Sly on that murder case, but now he had to speak on the heat that followed. He told the courtroom about his run-in with Garland Kaiser, one of Sly's pit bulls, laying out threats that could freeze a man's bones. Kaiser asking why he'd dare testify. Kaiser saying they could do a ride-by easy. Kaiser admitting he watched Wright's son pedal to school every morning, then asking how he'd feel if somebody put bullets through that child. Wright told them it didn't stop there. The harassment, the attacks, the shots.
Damn, that's what I said, bro. Like, they fuck his crew. His crew basically the reason why he got overcooked. Because if they would have just killed that nigga Wright, I'm not saying it's the good thing to do or the right thing to do. His name is Wright, but if they would have just killed this nigga, instead of sending threats and throwing Molotovs and doing all that dumb shit like, you know, watching your son. Man, if y'all would have just killed him, he would have beat the case. That's the only thing they had. That's the only thing they had. This nigga, these niggas here, bro. Y'all niggas was killing everything else. How y'all ain't kill a nigga that told? Now this nigga telling on y'all niggas for coming and pressing them. Now y'all gonna get, oh my God, they got the Rico, these niggas, oh man.
Fired into his world, his car firebombed, his home hit up, his son almost catching a bullet to the head. And in a moment that sounded more like a man preparing for war than prayer, he said after all that he walked into a church, grabbed 4 metal folding chairs and lined them around his son's bed, a homemade shield against death. By '94, the system came for Sly one last time. March, verdict dropped like a hammer. Guilty on 26 counts, not one life sentence, but 4 of them. No exits, no parole, just concrete and steel till the end. And his crew? 22 of the LA boys pleaded guilty over that same year. The grip they had on Buffalo's east side was gone, shattered. When the dust settled, even the prosecutor had to admit it. None of it moves without James Wright. A regular man who threw himself into the fire, risking his wife, his kids, everything he had just to stand up and say, yeah, I'll do it. He walked away from his whole world, family, roots, his city, just to make sure the truth got air. Buffalo felt the shift. The East Side wasn't a battlefield anymore. Streets that used to feel like they belonged to the gang were breathing again. Then October rolled around, and Wright received the Lou E. Peters Memorial Service Award, a quiet salute to a man who could never go back home, but changed home forever. He lost his city, but his testimony helped bring a neighborhood back from the edge. So, to recap and finish off this story, by the late 80s rolling into the 90s, the LA Boys weren't just another street crew in Buffalo. They were the storm that made the whole East Side shake. Their rep wasn't built off rumors or block talk. It was blood, coke money, and outright domination. Folks whispered that the crew stacked millions off that white powder, enough to make legit businessmen feel poor. And wherever their name got mentioned, violence wasn't far behind. It was practically part of the logo. Sly Green ran through those years like a ghost with a trigger finger. One time, the streets even talked about him wildin' during a high-speed chase, trying to dive straight into the whip of a rival dealer they called Fat Richard, the kind of stunt you only see in movies, except this one was real pavement, real bullets, and real madness. And Sly wasn't moving alone. His brother, Clayton Iceberg Green, cold-hearted as his nickname promised, stood right there in the fold. Iceberg had been living that gang life for decades, and the law finally caught up with him, raiding a spot in 2006 and uncovering cocaine. In '91, when Sly got bagged on a murder charge, he sat in a cell flipping through newspaper clippings about his own people like they were celebrities, telling another inmate, "These are my guys, this what they out here doing," like he was showing off trophies. The government eventually decided enough was enough. March 30th, 1994, federal court became a graveyard for the LA. Boys power. Under Judge John Thomas Curtin, 27 members got slammed with racketeering, conspiracy, obstruction, the whole alphabet of federal pain. A 7-week trial laid out the blueprint of how deep the operation went, even revealing Sly's ambition to stack 50 million off cocaine alone. 50 million. That ain't street dreams. That's cartel vision. Sly tried to fight it, of course. Appeals, motions, legal maneuvers, none of it mattered. March of '97, he got hit guilty again. By December that year, his shot at extending the trial got shut down cold. When the dust settled, the final tab was brutal. 4 life sentences stacked on top of 110 in extra years. A number so heavy it might as well be stamped forever. On the other side of the courtroom, war was attorney William J. Hochul Jr. He spent years clashing with Sly and his circle, pressing the case in '94, then stepping right back into the ring in a '96 murder trial tied to LA Boys member George Dog Powell. If the LA Boys were the fire, Hochul was the man who kept showing up with gasoline and matches. But the crazy part, even after the gang fell apart, Sly Green's name never really left the streets. If anything, it grew. Buffalo rappers like Westside Gun and Benny the Butcher kept his legend alive because they'd lived through the same blocks, the same grind, the same air thick with hustle. Benny even named a track Sly Green on Burden of Proof in 2020, turning street lore into rap scripture. Gunn went further, dropping a Sly Green skit on Fly God in 2016, then bringing him back on every single track of his 2024 EP. The man might have been locked in concrete, but his name kept running the streets like it never got sentenced. Sly Green's empire fell, but the myth, it still moves.
Damn, Sly. Nigga went down for some nut shit. That's some straight nut shit, bro. Damn. 110 years. Plus 4 life sentences. Damn, son. Because of a fucking rat. I'm out.